The following program is rated M for a mature audience. It contains adult themes.
Today I have filed defamation proceedings against the Daily Telegraph in the Federal Court of Australia. The Daily Telegraph has made false, pejorative and demeaning claims, splattering them with unrelenting bombast on its front pages. The situation is intolerable, and I must now seek vindication of my good name through the courts.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that was Hollywood star Geoffrey Rush last Friday. Surprise, surprise, taking aim at the Daily Telegraph and journalist Jonathan Moran for this front-page shocker from 12 days ago.
King Lear.
World exclusive. Oscar winner Rush denies inappropriate behaviour during Sydney's stage show.
That page one screamer was followed by a double-page spread inside the paper, headlined
Stars barred behaviour.
And those two, taken together, according to Rush's statement of claim, portrayed him as a pervert and sexual predator. As we told you at the time, the telly offered little detail and no evidence, not least because the complainant had refused to go public. Nor was there corroboration of the alleged incident from back in 2015, when Rush was playing King Lear for the Sydney Theatre Company. As we also told you, it was a story the Telegraph's stablemate, the Herald Sun, did not want to know about, sending this urgent warning to staff.
Please, under no circumstances, retweet, share, like, repost any stories about Geoffrey Rush on social media, etc., until further notice. The telly are running with a yarn which is highly libellous.
So it's no surprise that the actor has chosen to sue for damages. What happens next will, of course, be up to the courts, if it gets that far. Telly editor Chris Dawes' reaction was to fight back by saying,
"The Daily Telegraph accurately reported the Sydney Theatre Company received a complaint alleging that Mr Geoffrey Rush had engaged in inappropriate behaviour. We will defend our position in court."
Maybe so, but Bauer Media's recent loss to another Hollywood star, Rebel Wilson, cost the publishers of Woman's Day and Woman's Weekly some $7 million. So the stakes are high. Watch this space. But now to the rock star reception for you-know-who. And I don't mean Paul McCartney.
Strike the pose.
That was the extraordinary intro from Milo Yiannopoulos speaking in Sydney last week. The poster boy for America's alt-right was greeted by adoring fans inside the venue and scores of protesters outside keen to shut him down. But it did not stop him getting his message across.
You need to start fighting, and you need to start fighting fire with fire. You need to reject identity politics, and you need to reject political correctness. And if you want to save your country and save Western civilization, you need to reject all of the tenets that the progressive left is attempting to establish in culture.
Milo is a rock star for the right, and conservative media players in Australia, like Sydney shock jock Alan Jones, were last week giving him nothing but love.
Milo did say this: "If you can be charming, likeable, attractive, funny and modest like me, you'll win." Oh, don't we need you? Don't we need you? but
you see, I'm well known on 3 continents for my humility.
Alan Jones is besotted with Milo, interviewing him 3 times since the tour was announced, and not afraid for everyone to know. He was more than happy to pose with him and smile for the cameras, and on his 2GB breakfast show, Jones simply couldn't praise him enough.
the problem you have is you're articulate, you're interesting, you're unapologetic, a clear thinker, and apparently that frightens some people, not just in this country but around the world today.
So, who is Milo Yiannopoulos and why all the excitement? Well, he's a 33-year-old British-born gay man with a black husband who's made a career out of creating outrage wherever he goes, be it with headlines like this on Steve Bannon's right-wing website Breitbart, or with cameos like this from 2016.
I've taken some time out of my busy schedule, being fabulous and doing my hair, to prepare a speech for you. Well, a few remarks, really. Feminism is cancer. Thank you very much.
Yiannopoulos is also famous for talking about his teenage sexual initiation by a Catholic priest.
I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
And for defending men who have sex with underage boys.
Pedophilia is not a sexual attraction to somebody 13 years old who is sexually mature.
That statement forced Milo to resign from Breitbart in February. And since then, he's hit trouble again for getting too close to American white supremacists, seen here giving those Nazi salutes. But it's not only Alan Jones who's been raving about Milo's Australian tour, which finished on the Gold Coast last Thursday. Others on the right, in politics and the media, were also smitten. David Leyonhjelm hosted a Q&A with him at Parliament House, where Pauline Hanson and other One Nation senators were in the front row to watch. Ross Cameron opened his Sydney show and had him on Outsiders with Rowan Dean, while Mark Latham couldn't resist treating him as a champion, kissing him for the cameras and waxing lyrical on Twitter.
Amazing performance by Milo last night in Sydney. Non-stop laughter for 40 minutes. Meanwhile, lefties going through transcript underlining hundreds of offensive passages can only feel sorry for poor humourless fools.
Andrew Bolt is another huge fan, trumpeting Milo's tour before he arrived and opening the show for him in Adelaide and Perth. But while others merely raved about his brilliance, Bolt told readers of his News Corp column he'd felt sicker and sicker as he'd listened to Milo speak. And as he explained on air to Steve Price, he'd considered walking out.
I thought some of the rudeness, the vitriol, was
from
nasty,
him,
and I didn't like it from him.
To Ward.
Clementine Ford called her ineffable, but he used the whole word.
Really?
Jessica Rowe said that she was born a man.
Why is that necessary, that stuff?
He said Muslim asylum seekers were skilled at only a few things, including raping women. Things like that I thought were actually dreadful, terrible.
Did you tell him?
Yes, I did.
Sure enough, on his TV show that night, Bolt did raise it, although his challenge was quickly brushed aside.
Another one that really got me was where you said Muslim immigrants were skilled at one thing, and that was raping women.
I think I said many things. I think I said raping women, planning terrorist attacks, signing up for welfare. It's a joke.
Yeah, and pretty funny at that, branding Muslims as rapists, terrorists and welfare cheats. And Milo is actually not joking, because his message is that Islam, political correctness, identity politics, feminism and the left are destroying Western civilization. So he has a right to hit back and be as vile as he pleases.
I don't want everyone to be like me. I think the world would be ghastly if it was full of Milo-nopolises, but I think it is really important that there are some people like me. And I am nothing compared to the excesses of the left. If you think I'm crass and rude and mean and unnecessarily crude,
I totally agree with you.
I am 5% of what private citizens are subjected to on the basis of nothing from the organised left.
So, that is fiction number one. Milo's simply defending us and the right from the left's vicious attacks. Number two is we all have to defend him because he stands for free speech. That was Mark Latham's argument back in October when he campaigned to stop Milo being banned from Australia, even though there was no real prospect of that ever happening. And it's been the commentators and Milo's theme throughout this tour, thanks to a tiny minority of hard left protesters who deliver the publicity he craves. As Joe Hildebrand observed on news.com.au,
It is obvious to a blind monkey that the only person who benefits from a ban on Milo Yiannopoulos is Milo Yiannopoulos himself. He loves being banned. His whole business model is based on it. Probably never in human history has a political figure owed so much to his enemies.
Milo complained regularly throughout his tour that the media had not given him a fair go, as he did in Canberra to this 10 News reporter.
Why did you keep cancelling my interviews?
I don't represent...
I was booked on with so many of your shows and then you cancelled. Why did that happen?
But he's had more than enough opportunity to get his hyperbolic, hate-filled message across. We've counted 14 major TV and radio interviews with Milo since his tour was announced, including on 2GB, 3AW, 7, 10 and Sky, and many have been embarrassingly uncritical.
I have to confess to you, the word fawn comes from Fenian, Old English, which means rejoice, extol, exalt. And there are little Bambis bouncing around the studio because we have gone the full fawn. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Milo Yiannopoulos.
The ABC did not interview Milo. Perhaps it should have done to challenge some of his views and explore his links to the far right. But the claim that he was censored or muzzled is rubbish. And Andrew Bolt aside, he was given a far easier and more sycophantic ride than he ever deserved. But now to Melbourne's Superstorm and the worst weather in a generation.
The Bureau haven't minced their words when it's come to warnings about this superstorm. They say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 10 and that we were entering uncharted territory. 3 months of rainfall expected to fall over a period of just 72 hours. Now, if that does eventuate, we can expect the Yarra River, the Maribyrnong River to overflow, city streets to turn into rivers. So people are already starting to prepare their sandbagging.
That was the warning Melbourne residents were hearing 10 days ago. The deluge of a lifetime. And the media were on board to ensure the message got through.
Into the storm. Prepare for the worst.
Be prepared. Threat to life. Heaviest rain in 20 years.
So, come Friday night, TV was in position and braced for disaster, only to find it hadn't arrived.
It's not too concerning here at the moment, just some water over the crossing of the canal on Foam Road.
It wasn't as bad as predicted, but it was enough to be annoying.
Gave me some plastic bags, put it on my feet and was able to cross the water.
It's a bit underwhelming, actually.
Underwhelming and annoying. But the next day, Melbourne was warned not to be complacent.
Worst is yet to come.
Don't relax. We're not out of the water yet.
But by Saturday night, Melbourne's so-called superstorm had still not shown up, and the Bureau was coming under fire.
It was sold as the state's worst superstorm, but across Melbourne today there were more puddles than pools.
Well, we thought it was going to be a killer storm. We're all waiting, batten down the hatches and get Noah's Ark out.
They cancelled all sport. They told people to stay off the roads. People had to shut businesses because of this weather event.
So, what was the defence? On Monday, Victorian Emergency Services were being asked by Neil Mitchell if they could be trusted next time a storm brews.
Well, I hope so. And
why would they? I mean, they'd have to be a bit of Bureau who cry wolf here, wouldn't it?
I've had a good chat with the Bureau. I think there's some learnings out of this is to get what I call the narrative or the story right, because that's important.
It sure is. As Steve Price, who'd been sceptical from the beginning, summed it up that night.
There is some learnings. Stop exaggerating.
And the lesson for the media? Be a little bit more sceptical about all the hype. Especially when you've got real storms like this one happening year after year after year. Yes, that was Queensland's Cyclone Debbie, which brought its own less predictable risks for 7 reporter Paul Burt in this live cross back in March.
So you're a local?
Well, I am actually, and I finally met Debbie. I've heard about Debbie doing other things, but now she's giving Bowen a blowjob.
But that wasn't our only or our biggest media highlight of the year. And before we sign off on 2017, we thought we'd share some others with you. Like the media circus surrounding Schapelle Corby's release in May.
This is going to be a very long trip for her tonight. We're here and we understand that her anxiety levels are incredibly high.
12 and a half hours of coverage like that was broadcast over 3 days, with reporters staked out at every possible location to catch an exclusive. Such as this one, the telly, who assured us that
she has already inked a deal with Big Brother distributor Endemol Shine International and has applied for a network-sponsored working visa.
And who can forget Natasha Exelby, whose moment of distraction travelled around the world back in April.
Now to sport with Meredith Sheehan.
And a Media Watch shout-out would not be complete without an old favourite, the Daily Mail, whose geography skills need a little work. Back in October, they warned an Asian gang was on the loose, robbing people at gunpoint on the streets of Ipswich. And they had video proof. But on closer inspection, it was pretty obvious the video is not from Ipswich or even Australia. It was Karachi in Pakistan. Not that we're immune to stuff-ups ourselves. Back in February, Media Watch got an X-rated makeover thanks to some racy captions, like this, and this, and, I never said that. iView took the blame, confessing they'd accidentally switched our captions with Louis Theroux's documentary, Twilight of the Porn Stars.
Sex with someone this afternoon on camera?
I will. I feel like an asshole.
But our best laugh of the year was with this BBC interview on North Korea back in March, where Professor Robert Kelly managed to keep his calm in the face of truly memorable interference.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for
for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region, do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. North Korea.
And I'm sorry to say this is our last Media Watch for 2017. You can catch up with all our stories from this and previous years on our website. You can also find Media Bites on Facebook and more recent episodes of both on iView. We'll be back to watch the media and all its tricks in the new year. We'll see you then. Have a good holiday. Goodbye.